They say family is everything, that no matter how cruel the world becomes, your home will always be the place that protects you, heals you, and gives you strength. I believed that with all my heart. For 30 years, I lived for my family. Every dream I had, every plan I made, every sacrifice I accepted, it was all for them. I thought love meant giving until there was nothing left. I thought loyalty meant standing beside them, no matter the cost. I was wrong. My name is Janina Kessler. 2 years ago, I was a hard-working hotel operations manager, living a simple but stable life. My parents depended on my income. My younger brother James and his wife Greta relied on me for financial support. I paid the household bills, helped with their expenses, and even contributed most of my salary toward buying our family home. No one forced me. I did it willingly because I believed family came first. My parents used to praise me in front of relatives, calling me their pride. My brother often said he could never survive without me. Those words made every sleepless night, every exhausting workday feel meaningful. I thought I was building a future where we would all grow old together, safe and secure. But everything changed in a single night. That night, my phone rang while I was still at work. My mother was crying uncontrollably. She could barely speak, but I understood enough to feel my blood turn cold. James and Greta had been in a serious car accident. They had been speeding, driving on the wrong side of the road when they crashed into another vehicle. The other driver died on the spot. By the time I reached the hospital, my parents were waiting for me in the corridor, their faces pale, eyes swollen from crying. My mother collapsed at my feet, begging me to save my brother. My father held my hands tightly and said James had a weak heart, that prison would destroy him, that his life had only just begun. They promised me everything: gratitude, care, devotion, if I would take the blame. I stood there in silence, my heart pounding violently. I knew exactly what they were asking. Prison, a criminal record, a ruined future. But when I looked at their desperate faces, I couldn't say no. That night, I made the decision that would destroy my life. At the police station, I confessed to a crime I did not commit. I told them I was driving. I signed every statement. I accepted every charge. My brother sat behind me, silent, unable to meet my eyes. My parents kept crying and thanking me, promising they would repay me for the rest of their lives. The court sentenced me to 2 years in prison. 2 years. Some people think 2 years is not that long, but in prison, every single day feels like a lifetime. The moment the cell door closed behind me, I realized I had entered a world that did not care about tears, innocence, or sacrifice. The first months were unbearable. The cold concrete bed, the constant noise, the humiliating inspections, the hostile stares. Every night, I curled up in the corner of my bunk, whispering to myself that it would be over soon, that my family was waiting, that my suffering had meaning. I sold my car. I drained my savings. I paid the compensation to the victim's family. By the time I settled into prison life, I had nothing left except hope. I wrote letters to my parents. No replies. I called whenever I was allowed. No answers. I told myself they were too ashamed, too busy, too broken to face me. I kept believing in them because believing was the only thing that kept me alive. Inside prison, I learned patience. I learned silence. I learned how to swallow humiliation. I learned how to survive. One day a violent fight broke out in the common area. A young woman was being attacked. Without thinking, I rushed forward and shielded her. We both ended up injured, but she survived. Later, I learned she was the daughter of the richest man in town. She never forgot what I did. When my release day finally arrived, I stepped out of those gates with shaking legs and hopeful eyes. That woman was waiting for me. She hugged me tightly and told me I had saved her life. As gratitude, her family transferred a fortune into my account, more money than I could ever imagine. But at that moment, money meant nothing. All I wanted was to go home. The first thing I did was call my father. My hands trembled as I held the phone. When he answered, I whispered, "Dad, it's me." There was a long pause. Then, without a word, he hung up. My heart sank. Fearing something terrible had happened, I rushed straight home. But as I stood outside the familiar door, I heard voices inside. Greta was complaining loudly about having to rush the property transfer before I arrived. My mother replied calmly that it was necessary because with my prison record, I would never find a decent job or husband, and they didn't want me fighting for the house. Every word felt like a knife in my chest. When I finally knocked, my mother opened the door, surprised. She forced a smile, saying I looked thinner, asking if prison had been hard. If only I hadn't overheard their conversation, I might have believed her concern. Inside, my room was gone, filled with storage boxes. My belongings were nowhere to be found. My mother admitted they had been sold or thrown away. My father said Greta was pregnant and needed space. Then my mother casually tossed $200 onto the table and told me to find a motel. I stared at them in disbelief. This was my home, the house I helped buy, the family I sacrificed everything for. When I turned to my brother, he hesitated, then said I could stay. For a moment, hope flickered in my chest, but Greta immediately shut it down, mocking me for being shameless, reminding everyone that this house was under James's name now. My parents remained silent. That silence broke me. I finally understood. I was no longer family. I was a burden. With a shattered heart, I walked out of the house, homeless, betrayed, and alone. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I stayed in cheap motels, taking temporary jobs that barely paid enough to survive. Landlords rejected me when they learned of my criminal record. Employers turned me away. Even strangers looked at me with suspicion. Many nights I went to bed hungry. Many nights I cried silently into my pillow, wondering if my sacrifice had been the greatest mistake of my life. But slowly, I began to stand again. I used my savings wisely. I invested carefully. I returned to the industry I knew best, hospitality. I bought a struggling hotel and threw myself into rebuilding it. I worked 16 hours a day. I studied management strategies. I listened to customers. I improved services. I trained staff personally. Months passed, then a year. The hotel flourished beyond expectation. Soon it became the most prestigious hotel in the city. Reservations were booked weeks in advance. Business leaders, celebrities, and wealthy guests filled its halls. And yet, I kept my identity hidden. I wanted to see how far my family would go if they still believed I was nothing. One evening, I saw my parents, my brother, and Greta dining inside my hotel. They didn't recognize me at first. When they did, their reactions were immediate and cruel. They accused me of coming to beg for food. Greta insulted me. My brother slapped me. Security was called. When the hotel chairman arrived and bowed respectfully to me, their world collapsed. Suddenly, I was their beloved daughter again, their precious sister, their family. But I felt nothing. Months later, they invited me for a reunion dinner, claiming they wanted forgiveness. I sensed danger and contacted the police beforehand. During dinner, James insisted I drink a glass of orange juice. I pretended to swallow. Soon, they revealed their plan: poison, inheritance, and greed. Their faces twisted with excitement as they imagined my death. Before they could celebrate, the police burst in. They were arrested for attempted murder. The court sentenced them to prison. I did not attend the hearings. I did not visit. I did not forgive. For a long time, I struggled with emptiness. Not anger, not hatred, just a hollow sadness. Eventually, I met a man who loved me without conditions. We built a quiet life together. We had a daughter, and as I held her in my arms for the first time, I made a promise. I would never make her earn my love. Because real family does not demand sacrifice. Real family protects. Real family stays. And this time, I chose my family.